Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at JD.com. That's the Chinese e-commerce powerhouse
Right.
that's really sort of
Ooh.
nipping at the heels of Amazon.
Absolutely.
We're going beyond just the headlines, though.
Sure.
We want to understand what really makes this company tick.
Yeah.
How do they make money?
Mm-hmm.
What are their biggest costs? And what makes them different
Right.
in this really crowded online marketplace?
I think what's really fascinating about JD.com is this hybrid approach that they've taken.
Yeah.
So it's not just an online marketplace platform like
Oh, yeah.
Alibaba's Taobao.
Okay.
They also operate as a direct online retailer themselves.
Mhm.
So they really have a bit more control over a significant part of their supply chain.
Okay, so let's unpack this hybrid model a little bit.
Sure.
How does JD.com actually make money? What are their primary revenue streams?
Well, if you look at their financial statements, you see two main sources of revenue, product revenues and service revenues.
Huh.
Product revenues are pretty straightforward.
Okay.
That's the money they make from selling products directly to consumers.
All right, so that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But what about those service revenues? Where do those come from?
That's where their marketplace platform comes into play.
Okay.
So they generate revenue from commissions. They charge third-party sellers.
Okay.
And then by providing additional services like
Yeah.
logistics and marketing
Mm-hmm.
to these sellers as well.
Got it. So they're not just providing the platform.
Right.
They're also saying, hey, we have this incredible logistics network.
Exactly.
We have this huge customer base.
Yep.
So we can kind of provide a bunch of services on top of that.
Yeah, they're really kind of becoming a one-stop shop for any merchant that wants to reach those Chinese consumers.
Interesting. And if we look at their 20 ATF reports over the last few years, we can actually see how these revenue streams have shifted a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
So for instance, in 2018, electronics and home appliances, that made up about 61% of their product revenue.
Yeah, a huge portion.
But then by 2020, that had dropped down to 53.8%,
Okay.
whereas their general merchandise category grew to 33.6%.
Interesting.
So they're not abandoning electronics,
No.
but they are definitely branching out and trying to capture
Yeah,
a broader range of consumer needs. I mean, that makes sense, right? You want to fuel growth
absolutely.
and you want to protect yourself from
Yeah.
any fluctuations in the market.
The Chinese market in particular can be quite dynamic.
Yeah.
Consumer preferences are shifting,
Yeah.
and they're always sort of
Yeah,
economic uncertainties.
for sure. All right, so every business has costs, though.
Of course.
What are some of the key cost drivers for JD.com?
Well, one major cost is their massive investment in logistics and fulfillment,
Yeah, that makes sense.
especially as they try to expand their reach into some of the less developed areas of China.
Right.
I mean, building warehouses,
Mhm.
delivery stations, employing this vast network of delivery personnel.
Right.
And that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but isn't that a big part of their value proposition, though?
Absolutely.
That's what sets them apart from a lot of the competition, right?
It's a huge differentiator.
It's not just speed,
Right.
but it's also like reliability
Mm-hmm.
and customer service.
Absolutely. They really are aiming to provide that kind of seamless, trustworthy experience.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is really, really critical.
Especially in a market where counterfeit goods have been a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're making this big investment to really kind of build that trust
Right.
and create this positive customer experience.
Exactly.
They're saying, hey, shop with us. You're going to get authentic products
Right.
delivered quickly and reliably.
Yeah, it's a powerful message for those Chinese consumers.
Yeah, and seems to be working.
It really does.
But it's not just about logistics, right?
No.
They're investing a lot in technology, too.
Oh, they are.
I've heard that they're really big on AI
Mm-hmm.
and big data.
Absolutely. If you look at their 20F reports,
Yeah.
they highlight technology as a significant cost,
Mm-hmm.
particularly their investments in AI, big data,
Yeah.
and cloud computing.
Right.
And they're using these technologies for everything,
Okay.
from personalizing recommendations to optimizing delivery routes,
Interesting.
and even detecting counterfeit goods.
So they're weaving technology into every aspect of their business.
Exactly. It's critical.
Not just to be efficient,
Right.
but also to create that superior customer experience.
Absolutely.
And, I think it's a really forward-looking strategy.
I agree.
They're not just trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
They're trying to shape the future of e-commerce in China.
It really seems that way.
Speaking of looking forward, how does JD.com incentivize its employees to reach these really ambitious goals?
Well, that's a good question.
I was reading about a unique compensation plan for the founder,
Oh, yeah.
Richard Kingdong Lu.
Yeah, his compensation structure is quite interesting.
Yeah, fill us in.
So instead of like a traditional salary
Okay.
and bonus package,
Right.
he gets $1 a year in salary
Wow.
and no cash bonus.
It was pretty unusual.
It is, however, he was granted options to buy
Hey.
a massive amount of shares
So,
over a 10-year period.
so his compensation is really tied directly to the long-term performance of the company.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a pretty bold move.
It
It
is.
shows a lot of confidence in his own leadership
Right.
and in the company's future.
I think so too.
But it's not just him.
No, the filings also reveal
Yeah.
that he received options in their subsidiaries,
Interesting.
JD Logistics and JD Health.
So it really emphasizes how interconnected all of their different business ventures are
Absolutely.
and the importance of his leadership across that entire portfolio.
I think that's a key takeaway.
That's really fascinating. So we've talked about their goals, we've talked about compensation,
Right.
but how does this actually translate into their day-to-day operations? What are those critical activities that really keep this whole machine running?
Well, one of the most crucial aspects is inventory management.
Okay.
I mean, they have this enormous and incredibly diverse product catalog,
Right.
and they need to make sure
Yeah.
they have the right products in the right quantity
Yeah.
at the right time.
It's a delicate dance.
It is. And this is especially important for their fresh food markets,
Right.
where they're dealing with perishable goods.
Okay.
You know, any missteps in that inventory management could lead to some serious losses.
Big losses, yeah. And then on top of that, you've got the logistical challenge of getting all those products
Absolutely.
to all those customers,
Yeah.
especially with this commitment to really fast and reliable delivery.
You know, managing that logistics network, which includes, thousands of warehouses,
Right.
delivery stations, hundreds of thousands of personnel
Wow.
across China, it's a huge undertaking.
It sounds like a well-oiled machine, but it's got a lot of moving parts.
It really does.
I'm curious to learn more about some of the challenges that they face
Yeah.
and how they're navigating this incredibly complex e-commerce landscape in China.
I think there's definitely a lot more to uncover.
Yeah, and we're just getting started.
Right.
We've only scratched the surface here.
Absolutely.
There's so much more to explore.
Well, yeah.
So stay tuned as we continue to dive deeper into the world of JD.com.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
Me too.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to see how JD.com is trying to sort of tackle these complexities. And, one area that really stands out to me is their move into offline fresh food markets
Okay.
with their 7F Ariège brand.
That's right.
I mean, it's a pretty bold move, especially when you think about the logistical hurdles of dealing with, perishable goods.
Right. You don't have a lot of room for error.
No, you don't.
If those strawberries go bad,
Exactly.
that's a lot.
That's money down the drain.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges
Okay.
that they're facing with this particular expansion?
Well, their 20F report actually highlights some potential strain on their resources,
Okay.
both managerial and financial, expanding into these smaller, less developed areas.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of investment.
In infrastructure.
Yeah, in infrastructure.
Personnel.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're opening up this whole new market,
Right.
but it's also putting a ton of pressure on your profitability.
Exactly. It's a real balancing act
Yeah.
between growth and sustainability.
Right. Because if you're not careful,
Mm-hmm.
you can expand too quickly.
Absolutely.
And then suddenly,
you're overstretched,
yeah, you can't keep up.
and then you're in trouble.
Yeah. And it's not just about the logistics either, right?
No.
They're also facing competition
Oh, yeah. Fierce competition.
from those established supermarkets
Absolutely. The ones that already have those relationships with suppliers.
and customers.
Exactly.
So it's a reminder that even a giant like JD.com,
Right.
they can't just show up in a new market
Yeah.
and expect everything to be, roses and sunshine.
It takes time to build that trust.
Yeah. You have to adapt, you have to innovate,
Right.
and you have to figure out how to connect
Yeah.
with those new customers.
Absolutely. And speaking of trust,
Yeah.
another challenge that they highlight is this whole issue of navigating China's evolving data privacy and cybersecurity laws.
That's a big one.
It's a huge one. And, the regulations are still being clarified.
Right. It's kind of a moving target.
It is. And it's not entirely clear how they're going to impact JD.com's data collection and processing activities.
Yeah. I mean, this is a critical issue for any company
Absolutely.
operating in China,
Especially one that relies so heavily on data.
especially JD.com,
Yeah, for everything.
personalizing those recommendations, optimizing logistics,
Yep. Yeah.
detecting counterfeit goods.
It's all data driven.
Yeah. So the potential for fines, regulatory scrutiny,
Uh-huh.
reputational damage.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
Huge. I mean, they have to be so proactive in making sure that their data practices
Right.
are in line with this evolving legal landscape.
And it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's a tough job.
It is.
I also noticed a section in their reports about the risks associated with their investment in wealth management products.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they've allocated a pretty sizable chunk of their cash to these products.
Right.
Which could, expose them to market volatility
Mm-hmm.
and potential losses.
It's a common practice for companies
Yeah.
to try and generate returns on their excess cash.
Sure, makes sense.
But, it's not without risk.
No.
The value of those wealth management products can go up and down.
Right.
And if they were to experience some significant losses, that could really impact their financial stability.
It's just a reminder that even a company as large and successful as JD.com,
Right.
they're not immune to these market forces.
Not at all.
And those market forces can be influenced by things that are totally outside of their control.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about things like the U.S.-China trade tensions, global economic uncertainties,
All of that plays a role.
currency fluctuations,
Mm-hmm.
tariffs,
Mm-hmm.
political instability.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of.
All of these things can have a huge impact on their bottom line.
A huge impact.
And they have to constantly
Monitor
and manage.
all those risks.
Yeah, they need to be bold and ambitious in their growth strategy,
Right.
but also really prudent and cautious in managing their risks.
Yeah, it's a delicate balancing act.
Just a tightrope walk.
It is.
It makes you wonder how they actually manage all of this.
Yeah.
It's not just about, selling products and delivering them quickly.
It's so much more than that.
There's this whole other layer
Yeah.
of financial and regulatory complexities
Like
that they have to navigate.
And to add yet another layer to that complexity, there's this unique structure that they use to actually operate in China.
Okay.
It's called a variable interest entity,
Okay, and I've heard that term.
or VIE.
VIE.
Okay, it's a little bit intricate.
All right, well, break it down for us.
Okay, so essentially, it's a way for foreign companies
Okay.
to gain exposure to businesses in China
Right.
that are normally restricted to foreign investment.
Okay.
So instead of directly owning
Got it.
the Chinese operating company,
Hmm.
they set up a VIE
Okay.
that's technically owned by Chinese nationals,
Okay.
but it's controlled
All right.
through a series of contracts and agreements.
Your JD.com,
Yeah,
the Cayman Islands holding company,
right.
they don't technically own the companies that are operating
Exactly.
their main websites and
Right.
services in mainland China.
Exactly. They control them
Okay.
through these contractual arrangements with the VIEs.
So it's kind of this roundabout way
Yes.
of getting around those restrictions.
It's actually quite common
Okay.
for companies like JD.com.
But it also introduces some risks, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, for one thing, the legal enforceability
Yeah.
of these contractual arrangements,
Yeah.
it's not always clear cut.
Right, because you've got these two different...
Exactly.
Nice.
And if the Chinese government were to suddenly decide to challenge
Right.
the validity of these VIE structures,
Right.
it could really disrupt JD.com's operations.
That's a big risk.
It is.
So why would they even do this?
Well, it really comes down to navigating China's complex regulatory landscape.
Okay.
I mean, certain industries,
Mhm.
like e-commerce,
Mhm.
they're just restricted to foreign investment.
So this is their way of getting their foot in the door.
It allows those foreign companies to sort of work around those restrictions.
So it's a trade-off.
Right.
They get access to this massive market.
Absolutely.
But they also open themselves up to these really unique legal and regulatory risks.
Exactly.
And it's not just about setting up the VIE in the first place, right?
No.
They also have to make sure that everything they do,
Constant
Like so-
operation.
all their transactions comply with the rules.
And those rules are constantly changing.
Constantly changing. It's like walking a tightrope.
It really is. Speaking of tightropes,
Yeah.
their financial reports also mention a potential conflict of interest
Right.
with the shareholders of those VIEs.
Right, because you have to remember that some of the key executives at JD.com,
Okay.
including the founder, Richard Qiangdong Liu,
Mm-hmm.
they actually hold ownership stakes
Okay.
in some of these VIEs.
So they're on both sides of the fence.
Right.
So their personal interests
Yeah.
could potentially clash
Mm-hmm.
with the best interests of JD.com.
Exactly. So a decision that might benefit them personally
Right.
might not be the best decision for the company or its shareholders.
That's a tough situation to manage.
It is. It requires a lot of transparency
Right.
to make sure that all the decisions are being made
Mm-hmm.
in the best interests of the company and its shareholders. Because if there's even a hint of impropriety,
Yeah.
that could really damage investor confidence.
Absolutely.
And then you've got legal and regulatory problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a reminder that corporate governance is just crucial,
So important.
especially for a company
Mm-hmm.
that's operating in a complex environment like China.
Yeah, you need that transparency,
Transparency,
accountability
ethical behavior
to maintain that trust.
with investors and with the public.
Absolutely. And speaking of transparency,
Okay.
their reports also shed some light on some of the unique aspects of Cayman Islands law.
Okay, so we're going from China to the Cayman Islands now.
We are, because remember, JD.com is technically incorporated in the Cayman Islands.
Right, even though they're doing business in China,
Exactly.
they're subject to those Cayman Islands laws.
Exactly. So, for example,
As an example.
their directors have the power to take certain actions,
Okay.
like selling off company assets,
Mm-hmm.
without even requiring shareholder approval.
Wow.
That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power concentrated
Right.
in the hands of that board.
Yeah, and it's quite different from what you see
Yeah.
in other jurisdictions.
So shareholders kind of have less of a say
It seems that way.
in those major decisions.
And it really highlights how important it is for investors to understand
Yeah.
the legal and regulatory framework.
Of wherever that company is incorporated.
Exactly, because it can have a huge impact on their rights and protections.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
You know, we've got the VIE structure.
Yeah.
We've got the potential conflicts of interest. We've got these unique aspects of Cayman Islands law.
Yeah, it all adds up to a pretty complex corporate governance picture.
It does, and we haven't even talked about the human element yet.
Right. All those employees.
You know, how do you manage this massive workforce in China?
Mm-hmm.
How do you foster a positive work environment?
Right.
How do you make sure that your employees are motivated
Absolutely.
and aligned with the company's goals?
That's a whole other layer
Yeah.
of complexity.
It's amazing how much we've uncovered
Wow.
just
Yeah.
by digging into these financial reports.
Right.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Hey, Brain,
You know, every layer we peel back,
there's another one.
there's more complexity.
Another complexity.
And we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
There's still more to uncover
Absolutely.
as we continue our deep dive
into the fascinating world.
into the fascinating world of JD.com. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about it.
Right.
All these different moving parts that JD.com has to manage.
Yeah.
We've talked about their logistics, their expansion into new markets,
Mm-hmm.
the VIE structure, the complexities of operating in China.
It's a lot.
But it all comes back to one question.
Yeah.
How do they actually make it work?
Right.
What's the secret sauce?
Well, it's not just one ingredient.
Okay.
I think it's a combination of factors that have really led to their success.
Mm-hmm.
One key element is definitely their focus on the customer experience.
Yeah.
You know, they've built this reputation for fast, reliable delivery, authentic products, and excellent customer service.
So they're giving those Chinese consumers what they want,
Exactly.
but how do they maintain that focus
Right.
while also expanding into all these new areas
Yeah.
and navigating all these complexities?
Well, I think that's where their technology investments really come in.
Yeah.
You know, they're not just using technology to optimize logistics or personalize recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
They're also using it to enhance customer service,
Okay.
to combat counterfeit goods,
Yeah.
and even to empower those third-party sellers
Yeah.
on their marketplace platform.
But technology is really like the backbone
I think
of their entire operation.
it enables them to scale rapidly
Yes.
while still maintaining that customer-centric approach.
Okay, so technology is important,
Yeah.
but it's not enough on its own, is it?
No. I mean, it's about how they integrate that technology
Right.
with their operational expertise and their strategic vision.
Okay, they're not just throwing money at the problem.
Yeah. Exactly. They're using it very strategically to solve very specific problems
Yeah.
and to create that seamless customer experience.
It's like they've built this digital ecosystem
Mhm.
that connects every part of their business.
Right? From sourcing products.
To delivering them to customers' doors.
It's impressive.
It really is. And it seems like they're not content with just being an e-commerce company either.
No, they're not.
They're branching out into all these other areas.
Fintech?
Fintech, healthcare, agriculture.
They want to do it all.
So they're really leveraging that technology platform
Mm-hmm.
and that massive customer base
Yeah.
to move into all these adjacent markets.
Trying to create this more diversified and resilient business.
It's a bold strategy,
It is.
but is it sustainable?
That's the million-dollar question.
When they really be all things to all people?
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy.
Right.
If they can pull it off,
Mm.
they'll be an unstoppable force
Yeah.
in the Chinese economy.
But if they overextend themselves,
Yeah, or if they fail to execute effectively.
it could all come crashing down.
It could.
So they've got to be really careful.
They do. They need to manage that growth very, very carefully while also maintaining those core strengths.
Right. And let's not forget about the competition.
Oh, yeah.
They're not the only player in these markets.
Not even close.
They've got Alibaba, they've got Tencent, you've got all these innovative startups.
It's a constant battle
Yeah.
for market share, customer loyalty, and technological supremacy.
It's a tough business.
It is.
And that battle's not just confined to China.
That's right.
JD.com has global aspirations.
Southeast Asia,
Southeast Asia,
Europe.
the U.S.
They want to be a global player.
Yeah. So that adds another layer of complexity.
It does.
Because they need to adapt
Right.
their business model, their strategies.
What works in China might not work in other parts of the world.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
It is.
It's fascinating to see how JD.com is evolving
I agree.
and adapting to all these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly pushing boundaries
They are.
and challenging the status quo.
Always innovating.
It's a story that's still being written.
It is a story of innovation, ambition.
And that relentless pursuit of growth.
I think that's a good way to put it.
And it really highlights just how dynamic
Yeah.
and ever-changing
Mm-hmm.
this global business landscape really is.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a really insightful deep dive
It has.
into the world of JD.com.
Yeah, we've explored their business model,
Their strategic decisions.
their challenges, and the opportunities that lie ahead.
A lot to think about.
We hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding
A deeper understanding.
of this fascinating company.
And the forces that are shaping its future.
And maybe it's even sparked some questions of your own
Maybe.
about the future of e-commerce,
The role of technology.
the challenges of operating in this globalized world.
It's a lot to consider.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We appreciate it.
We'll see you next time.
For another fascinating
Of the
exploration
business world.